There's a friendship that many older adults carry in the back of their mind. Someone they were close to for years, decades maybe. A person who knew them before the gray hair, before the grandchildren, before the slower mornings and the quieter evenings. Someone who used to be just a phone call away, and then, without any argument, without any falling out, without any single moment you could point to and say that's when it changed, became someone you haven't spoken to in over a year. You still think about them. You still mean to call. But somehow the call keeps not happening, and the longer it doesn't happen, the harder it becomes to begin. If that resonates with you, if there's a face that just came to mind, then this conversation is for you. Before we go any further, everything I'm sharing here is for educational purposes only. Please talk with your doctor or healthcare provider before making any changes to how you care for yourself or someone you love. Here's what I want you to understand by the time we finish. Friendship after 60 doesn't fade, because people stop caring. Research suggests it fades for much more specific, much more preventable reasons. And there are four concrete, doable things, that studies have found genuinely protect and sustain friendships in later life. But before I share them, I want to ask you something worth sitting with. When was the last time a friend knew something true about your life right now? Not your life 5 years ago, not the version of you they remember, but who you actually are today. Hold that question. We'll come back to it. Let's begin with something that surprises most people when researchers explain it clearly. Friendship in later life doesn't erode primarily because of distance or health or busyness. It erodes primarily because of what researchers call maintenance failure, the gradual, unintentional neglect of the small, regular acts of contact that keep a relationship feeling alive and current. Studies have found that friendships require what psychologists describe as continued investment. Not grand gestures, not long visits, but consistent small contact that signals, I still think about you. You still matter to me. You are still part of my present, not just my past. When that signal stops, when contact becomes occasional rather than regular, when updates become summaries rather than conversations, the friendship doesn't end. It simply becomes more like a memory than a living thing. And memories, however warm, don't hold us the way present connections do. Let that sit for a moment. The four things we're going to discuss today are all forms of maintenance. They are the specific behaviors that research has found to be most effective at keeping friendships alive, close, and genuinely nourishing after 60. And every one of them is simpler than you might expect. The first is one that sounds almost too obvious to say, and yet research consistently finds it to be the thing most commonly missing from friendships that fade. Showing up with curiosity rather than assumption. One of the quieter ways friendship dies after a certain age is through the gradual replacement of genuine curiosity with assumed familiarity. You've known this person for 30 years. You think you know how they feel about things. You think you know what their days look like. And so conversations begin to skim the surface. Familiar territory, old stories, the comfortable shorthand of people who know each other well. But research suggests that the friends who feel most meaningful to older adults are not necessarily the longest-standing ones. They are the ones in which both people still feel genuinely curious about each other, still ask questions, still discover things, still treat the other person as someone who is actively becoming, rather than someone who has already become. Picture this with me. Two women who have been friends since their children were in school together. 30 years of shared history. They meet for lunch twice a year and talk, warmly and easily, about the past, about the children, about things that happened long ago. But neither of them asks the other, "What are you afraid of lately? What are you hoping for? What has surprised you about this stage of your life?" Those questions feel too big, too vulnerable somehow, even after 30 years. And so they leave each lunch feeling fond but not quite fed. That's the part worth writing down. Curiosity is the thing that keeps a friendship alive rather than preserved. And it requires only the courage to ask a real question and the patience to sit with the real answer. The second thing research points to as genuinely protective of friendship in later life is one that many older adults resist, often for reasons that feel entirely reasonable. Being willing to be the one who reaches out first, consistently, without keeping score. Studies have found that in friendships that remain strong into later life, there is almost always one person who initiates slightly more than the other, who sends the message first, who makes the call, who says, "Let's get together," and then actually follows through with a specific plan. Now, here's what surprised researchers when they looked at this more closely. The person who initiates more does not generally feel resentful about it, and the person who initiates less is not generally indifferent. They are often simply less practiced at reaching out, more hesitant, more worried about imposing, and genuinely, deeply glad when contact is made. Most people never connect these two things, the slight imbalance in who initiates and the long-term health of the friendship. They are not in conflict. Initiating more is not a sign that the friendship is unequal. It is often a sign that one person has understood something important about how friendships survive the particular challenges of later life. If you are waiting for your friends to reach out as often as you'd like them to, and finding that they don't, it may be worth asking yourself whether the waiting itself is costing you something more valuable than the reaching out would. The third thing is one that researchers describe as perhaps the most powerful predictor of friendship depth and longevity, and also the one that requires the most from us. Allowing yourself to be known as you actually are right now. This is harder than it sounds. Many older adults carry a version of themselves in their friendships that was formed decades ago. The capable one, the funny one, the one who managed everything, the one who didn't need much, and they continue to perform that version even when life has changed significantly, even when they are struggling, even when the performance has become quietly exhausting. Studies have found that the friendships older adults describe as most meaningful, most sustaining, most genuinely nourishing, are characterized by mutual vulnerability, by the experience of being known not just historically but currently, not just for who you were, but for who you are. Picture this with me. A man in his early 70s who has been dealing with significant grief since losing his wife 2 years ago. He has friends, good friends, friends who check in, who invite him to things, who are genuinely present. But when they ask how he's doing, he says, "Fine," because he has always been the one who was fine. And he doesn't know how to be the one who isn't, even now, even with people who would absolutely want to know. That loneliness, the loneliness of being cared for but not truly seen, is one of the most common experiences researchers document in older adults, and it lives inside friendships that look, from the outside, completely intact. Remember the question I asked at the beginning. When was the last time a friend knew something true about your life right now? The answer to that question and everything we've discussed are connected, because being known requires being curious enough about yourself to know what's true. It requires the willingness to reach out rather than wait. And it requires the courage to say something real when someone asks how you are. These things build on each other, and together they create the conditions for friendship that actually holds. The fourth thing is the one that ties all the others together, and the one that research finds most consistently separates the friendships that endure from the ones that quietly disappear. Making friendship a priority that gets scheduled, not a pleasure that gets postponed. Studies have found that after retirement, after the natural social structure of work disappears, friendships that are not deliberately scheduled tend to become increasingly infrequent, not because people value them less, but because without the automatic proximity that work once provided, connection requires effort, and effort, in the absence of intention, tends to get deferred. The research solution to this is almost embarrassingly simple. Put it in the calendar. A regular walk, a standing phone call on the first Sunday of the month, a commitment, however modest, that treats friendship as an appointment rather than an aspiration. Studies have found that friendships maintained through regular scheduled contact are significantly more likely to remain close, emotionally nourishing, and mutually sustaining over time than those left to the spontaneity that rarely arrives. This is not unromantic. It is not a bureaucratic approach to something that should feel natural. It is simply the honest acknowledgement that the things we love, at every stage of life, require our deliberate attention to survive. So now you understand why friendships don't fade out of indifference. They fade out of maintenance failure, out of the slow accumulation of assumptions, hesitations, performances, and deferrals that feel harmless individually, but compound into distance over time. And you understand what actually works. Showing up with genuine curiosity, reaching out without keeping score, allowing yourself to be known as you currently are, and putting friendship in the calendar with the same seriousness you give to everything else that matters. One of these 4 things, started this week, is enough to begin. A message sent to someone you've been meaning to contact. A question asked that you've never quite asked before. A plan made and written down rather than left to intention. The friend who came to your mind at the beginning of this conversation is still there, still thinking about you, in all likelihood, in the same way you're thinking about them. The distance between you is made of nothing more solid than time and habit, and both of those can be crossed. If something in today's conversation moved something in you, if a friendship came to mind that deserves more of your attention, I'd love to hear about it in the comments. Tell me about a friendship that has shaped you. Tell me what has helped you keep the people you love close. Your experience is worth sharing, and someone watching today may need to hear exactly what you have to say. And if you know someone who has been a little more isolated lately, a friend who seems to have pulled back, or someone you've been meaning to call yourself, please share this with them. Not as advice, just as a hand extended across whatever distance has grown between you. The call you've been meaning to make. Make it today.